Welcome everyone to Mile Fuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Westworld Season 4, Episode 1. It's called The Auguries, so full spoilers for the episode as always. And I'm going to get something out of the way right up front of this review, as that this will be my last episode of Westworld. And what I'm about to do is tell you why it's my last episode of Westworld. So if you're wanting something that's super positive, or you're wanting something that is just about theorizing the mysteries, although I've got a few ideas here or there, but it's not really what this is. I wasn't feeling good getting into this episode because I really didn't like the end of Season 3. The fact that the Season 4 trailer dropped like a month and a half, 2 months ago, whatever it was, and my reaction to it was, oh, there's another season of Westworld. I mean, I knew it got renewed like ages ago, but it'd been 2 years since the last season. I checked, actually. It was right near the start of the pandemic when the last season aired, so it's been over 2 years since Season 3, just a little bit over. And I remember the broad strokes. There was some stuff that I definitely hadn't remembered. I forgot about the MacGuffin, which was the big device that was controlling everyone. Obviously, this episode kind of reminds you of it. Don't even ask me to give you the name of that thing, because there's no way it's. I remember struggling with that during the season. There's no way I'm remembering it now. I didn't really like this episode that much. It was kind of dull, and it was an awkward combination of being kind of dull and plodding, because it was a lot of slow scenes with the various characters and their various situations. It's been a 7-year time jump since Season 3. But the other thing that kind of really got to me in this episode is that I think this show, unless what they're doing is so compelling that it's fascinating again, I think that the idea of starting everything in episode 1 of the new season as a mystery, and not even just as a mystery, because mystery was always part of the show, but the fact that all the characters seem relatively reset and they're all in their own situations now, so we have to learn what Aaron Paul's character Caleb's doing and what his life is like now. We have to learn where Maeve is. We have to learn what some other characters are doing, and it's all starting from scratch, and it's all starting with this piecemeal of the mystery of ew, what are they all doing, or what's all going on. We're going to slowly reveal what's happened over the last 7 years. We're going to slowly reveal where we're going, and that worked in Season 1. It worked to a lesser extent in Season 3, or Season 2, sorry. But Season 2 and 3 both did kind of start with, it felt like, more sort of input from the previous seasons. This does feel like more of a clean slate, even though I'm sure the history of the show is still relevant to everything that we're ultimately going to do. It felt a bit tiring. I was just kind of like, I don't care about the mysteries anymore all that much. Nothing. In fact, I actually laughed out loud at the end of the episode, because I thought what they reveal at the end of the episode, and as I said, spoilers. So, Teddy is like the bodyguard for Dolores, or she's called Christina, I think, just now. Yeah, Christina. I hated the Season 3 finale. In fact, I hated the last 2 or 3 episodes of Season 3 pretty much. I thought there was some interesting ideas in the season. There was an episode in the middle that I quite liked, when they sort of released all the info mid-season to everyone. I thought that was a pretty decent episode. I liked where it was going, but then it just kind of fell off a cliff. I thought the finale had just some really generic fights and things like that. I don't know. It wasn't like the show that I felt like they'd created up until that point. It just kind of dumbed everything down into a CW style action sort of climax. So I wasn't looking forward. But the one thing that I actually did kind of appreciate about the finale was the idea that the lead character, Dolores, up until that point, was effectively sacrificing herself or letting herself die and passing on the mission to Maeve. I really thought that was a ballsy idea. It was a ballsy move. And I said at the time that she should just be gone now. And maybe Evan Rachel Wood wanted to go. Maybe she didn't want to do any more seasons, and maybe that's why they were making this choice. But I said she should be gone. So when I saw the trailer for this, and I saw Evan Rachel Wood, I immediately said, what the hell? Why is she here? Why are we not sticking to this death? I watched this episode, and they're playing it with some mystery and stuff, and they're calling her Christina. She's got a roommate. The dynamic's very much like William and the other guy from Season 1, where the roommates try to get her to open up, and to have more of a life, blah 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 blah. To the point where she even asks, what shoes should I wear, and she holds up white shoes and black shoes, and it's kind of like the cowboy hats, right, in season 1. And I've got a theory here. I'm pretty sure Christina, air quotes, is Dolores reincarnated, and I think that the Man in Black has probably put her in either a city that's actually another Westworld park, not necessarily one for tourists necessarily, but like something he's created. And when I say he, I know it's technically not the original him anymore. He was replaced right at the end of the season by a host or something. I didn't like how the Man in Black stuff ended last season either, so that was another sticking point going into this. But there's these weird hints that she's getting like a stalker on the phone, but when he actually shows up, he says, "You're ruining our lives. You're the stories you're making in the game." He's kind of implying that they're actually playing out in the world, and it made me think this wasn't the real world that she's in. She's actually either in like a virtual world, like a video game, or when the almost like the heaven they had for the hosts, or alternatively, like I said, a park of some kind where it's all hosts or whatever. But the idea that the stories she's writing are actually affecting the kind of the lesser characters in this world that she's in, and she doesn't know she's in this world. She thinks she's Christina. And the reason why I think the Man in Black's behind this to some extent, possibly, is that it feels like because her situation is kind of like what William's situation was a little bit like, and that she's kind of standoffish, she's kind of nervous, she doesn't want to interact with people. I feel like if it is the Man in Black that's behind this, he's doing this to sort of like put her through what he was going through kind of at a stage in his life or something. But I'm not that enthralled with it. And when Teddy showed up at the end, and I saw Cyclops step out of the shadows, as an admittedly good cover of a Lana Del Rey song was playing. I mean, the show's always had good music. I'm not going to fault that. I just kind of started laughing, and I don't think that's what they wanted the reaction to be. And I started laughing because it just kind of felt like, oh, we're pulling back something else from an earlier season when things were better. It feels like it's kind of like self-cannibalizing, and maybe there'll be some good ideas here. Maybe there's a good reason for them. There's a good reason for the themes or whatever. But I was not enthralled with her being back because I feel like it cheapened anything that was good about her death last season. I wasn't in love with. And likewise, the Man in Black's whole thing, or whatever version of him we have now, taking on the cartel because he wants the data bank that has presumably all the host data in it, which is, maybe that's set before everything else happens in this episode. This is before he builds whatever Dolores is in, virtual or physical, as it may be. I'm like, okay, maybe there's more to it than that, and that's cool. But the bigger problem is that I just wasn't that into it as it was playing out. I wasn't enjoying Christina, again, quotation marks, going into this blind date with this douchebag. I wasn't enjoying her at work being chewed out for not writing good stories, even though I could see how thematically that ties into like her trying to write happier stories, but no one wants the happier stories, and maybe that's whoever's controlling this world she's in, try to teach her a lesson. Assuming I'm right that she's not in just the real full world, but I don't think she is. It really felt like she's separate to everyone else. And then the other stuff is kind of frustrating because like Caleb having a family now and having a daughter, having a wife, it's all a little bit like a shortcut to try and give him some new stakes that he didn't have before, because these characters weren't there before. They're completely just made up for this season, and that would be fine, except the episode ends with him going off with Maeve to investigate what William's doing, because he sent assassins after them that are actually hosts. The one that goes after Maeve's a host, and she looks in, she connects to it and looks for evidence and whatnot. But it's kind of a cheap ploy from a writing standpoint to try and like make us care that he's worried about getting back to his family, his wife and daughter. He's worried about getting back to them. But it feels so artificial because we've skipped ahead and now he just has this. It's something I always have a problem with TV shows when they have a new season and there's like a new loved one that's happened off camera between seasons, and we're introduced to this new character. It's always very difficult to have that new character resonate and connect if you don't like give them proper story time and actually sort of earn the audience, like the audience's like, I don't know, love and affection. That's not the right words. The audience's appreciation. The there's examples that ultimately kind of work by the end. Like I'm thinking like Bob in season 2 of Stranger Things, right? I won't say much, I don't want to spoil anything. But he's a character that's added in season 2, and all of a sudden he's dating Joyce, and in a weird way it kind of works in that, because like Jonathan and Will feel a little bit weird about this boyfriend hanging around, so you kind of like have characters that you're connecting to because you're sharing your feeling with them, that he feels like a bit tacked on, right? But then by the time you get to the end of the season, he's kind of earned his place a little bit, and you kind of like learn to like him, and it's nice. But I did have that feeling at the start of the season, and there's definitely other shows, which I can't think of other examples off the top of my head, but there's definitely other shows where they'll add new characters like this that are that are related, that are either new spouses or whatever. Someone that all of a sudden we're supposed to expect as a tether for one of our main characters, but it feels really weird when you've added them in kind of like between seasons, and we're after the fact. So when he's leaving at the end and he's like, I promise I'll be back, and he's all in shadow, and you've got the dramatic lighting where he's just got the light rim around the front of his face, he's like, I'll be back, wife, I promise. I'm just like, I feel like you're trying to just fabricate more reasons for there to be stakes in him going off and doing this. And it doesn't really help that immediately Maeve's like, you don't need to come. I'll go and do this on my own. She just came to like save him from assassins because she knew there was going to be some coming. And she's left some like some war buddies. So this war that happened, was mostly off camera. Like we had the riots at the end of season 3, but the war didn't happen during the season. Which again, having stuff between seasons is fine. It absolutely is. And maybe it's just because I left season 3 not really liking a lot of what it did. But so much of this just feels that we're back to like a slow status quo. We were having to reintroduce everything again, and it's just like my patience is not there for it anymore. I mean, maybe this is a harsh thing to say, but I was painfully bored for the vast majority of this episode. There was very little in it that was very inspiring or intriguing. I mean, the visuals of the show feel like they've taken a huge downgrade, and it's not that it looks cheap per se. Like I'm not saying it doesn't have good effects or whatever, but other than a few things at the start of the dam, there wasn't a whole lot of interesting variety in locations. It was all pretty simple stuff, and like we're in a futuristic city by and large. I mean, that could be visually interesting. I was excited before season 3 started of having the futuristic city. But by and large, nothing in this was all that exciting. I think back to season 1 and 2, and because they had this Westworld setting, and then the contrast of that with all the creepy labs where all the hosts went, and that was all very clinical. So you had this great like contrast between these open vistas of the Wild West and all that, and then the labs and things. So like you had different types of really interesting visuals. The writing quality diminished pretty much with each season that I did see, and I can't say how this season is going to play out, or if it's if it's going to be overall weaker than season 3. But certainly this first episode was not encouraging. I don't feel any motivation to watch any more of it. And I sort of felt that about halfway through the episode. Like once I got at least a scene with every character that they're spending time with, because there's a few that aren't here yet. Tessa Thompson will show up, I'm sure, soon. But once it sort of introduced me to all the plot threads, it had this sort of crushing realization that I didn't really care about any of them. None of the kind of the ramping up at the end, which was Maeve and Caleb teaming up again. And that's the weird thing. Like, if you're going to like give Caleb a new family and you're going to make me want to care about that new family, then you have to do something with them. You have to give me some meaty story with them to make me care. But because it's only getting a third to a quarter of the episode's runtime to do that, it's hard to accomplish that in one episode. So at the end of the episode, when he's leaving with Maeve, like I said, it feels just kind of cheap that we're expected to care about these extra stakes of the family that he has to come back to. Because he's already worried about his death in the future from last season. Like Maeve saw that or something. I'm probably misremembering some of this, but they're trying to add something more onto it by having people that'll miss him if he's gone. And I narratively understand why you're doing that, but it just feels a bit. It just feels a bit by the numbers, and that's the sad thing I felt about a lot of the scenes in this episode. Is I felt just a lot of by the numbers, unspectacular TV. Whereas when I watched season 1 of Westworld, I was constantly in awe of the visuals I was seeing. I was in awe of the ideas that were being presented and the puzzle, the mystery of what was going on. And I'm not sitting here saying it's the worst thing I've ever watched. It's not the worst hour of TV I've ever seen. It's just very mid. And I feel no passion or encouragement to keep watching. I don't want to watch it anymore. So, I mean, sadly, that's ultimately what I'm I'm here to just say with this, is that this is it. I'm not watching any more Westworld season 4. And I feel really sad about that because I cared so much about it back in season 1 and even season 2. Season 3 was the weird one where it kind of really turned. And I was hopeful when it started, but there was kind of like a worry because season 2 did have shakier elements at places, but ultimately was still very worthwhile. Season 3 went so down the toilet towards the end that this probably had to be a special episode. This had to be like as good as the pilot again to kind of win me back in, pull me back in and say, you need to care about this, you need to care about where we're going. And I think the sad part is that the new direction that it's going in with what the Man in Black's doing with whatever he's doing with the hosts and possibly Dolores / Christina, is that I'm not that excited about the direction. And one of the things that the show always had for me back at the start is I was excited with the ideas that it was presenting me. I was excited with how it played with time. I was excited with how it played with the idea of a host's memory and all those other things. And I'll be honest, there was a moment early on in the episode when the first time you see Maeve and she causes the power outage when she's doing like her machine telepathy or whatever she's doing. There's a couple of like flashes of like her backstory with her daughter and the white dress in the field, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost turned it off when I saw that, because if there's one thing this show I've seen too much of from it, it is the goddamn Maeve and her daughter backstory. It was very effective once upon a time, but like I groaned and rolled my eyes. I just, it's like when I'm reading the Batman comic now and they have to like show the pearls dropping in the alleyways as the mother's shot. Like it's that for her. I never need to see it again, right? You can reference the fact that she had a daughter. I'm not saying you can't. Later on when Caleb says, if anything happens to my daughter, you wouldn't know how I'd feel, and she's like, I know exactly how you'd feel. Like, that's fine. I'm not necessarily excited by it, but that's a fine reference. It's whatever, right? You can refer to the fact that she had a kid, but I'm so sick of seeing it. Like, I'm so beyond sick of seeing it. So yeah, I don't want to watch any more of this. So I honestly, I even considered not even recording a review for it because I kind of felt like, is there a point? But I feel like people are going to ask, is there going to be a Westworld review? And I have watched it, so I might as well put the 20 minutes or whatever into just talking about it. But I hate making videos like this. I hate making videos like this where I'm negative, but it's not like a over the top. Like I can't be making jokes and like being like, aha, that's so bad, these characters are so dumb, or I don't usually sound like that, but when I really hate something, when something's a true turd and I get to make fun of it and like sort of rage about why is it this way, there's still some passion there in that case. This is a much more kind of just miserable, like it's lost all of its special qualities and charm, and there's very few ways to say that in any kind of entertaining way. The only sort of hope I have is that some of you are feeling some of these things and maybe you're kind of hearing some of these words and you're thinking, yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same. Something about it just isn't clicking anymore. And I think a lot of the elements have gone very mild since season 1. The cinematography, the locations, the complexity in the ideas, and for lack of a better word, the spark is just kind of missing. So It feel yeah, it's such a weird thing. I don't really know, but it's dwindled considerably, and unfortunately, this is the end of my Westworld journey. I will never find out why Teddy's back, or why he's like, is he meant to protect Dolores, or is he doing this kind of against his like new coding, or because he cares about her, or whatever else. I don't know, but I don't really care either. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully if you did get all through all this, apologies for just being miserable and negative, but it's just kind of how it made me feel. And I'd rather be honest than try and pretend some enthusiasm that isn't there, because ultimately I'll just talk a lot of nonsense if I do that. So yeah, let me know what you think of the season 4 premiere in the comments. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. And if you want to support the channel, you can hit the super thanks button down below, or of course you can go to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and support us for as little as $1 per month over there. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?